For those of you who don't know, the guitar player is my daughter, and that guitar player is my son, and the bongo player is my daughter and the other daughter. Just for those of you who don't know who the guy with the ponytail is, that's my son, Joe. One of the questions that came to my mind as I'm getting ready, as I was preparing for today's message, which we're going to be in Revelation chapter 13. We sit here and we try to figure out, okay, is this about 7 years? Is this about 7 generations? Is this about 7,000 years? Is this about from the foundation of the earth all the way until when Jesus establishes his kingdom permanently? What's the time frame? And it hit me, but what about poor John, who's getting all this downloaded to him like a fire hydrant in just probably a matter of hours? He's sitting there minding his own business, going to worship, and he gets this major download, and he's just writing. And I'm thinking, if we have questions, imagine what he's doing going, okay, no, wait, is this... Have you ever watched one of those movies? I saw a movie the other day, and it showed a scene from like Friday to Saturday. And then it went back and it showed you what happened on Thursday. And then it went back and it showed you what happened on Wednesday. And then it went back and showed you what happened on Tuesday. And then you go, I see. And what the book of Revelation does is sometimes Jesus is telling John, write this down. Now, this happened 2,000 years ago. Now, John, write this down. This is going to happen in 7 years. John, write this down. This is going to happen at a time nobody really knows, but it's going to be somewhere in between. And so it would be great if when John was writing, he would have, like Sally does in her journal, if he would have used different colored pens that would have gotten translated where we know, okay, this is about past things, this is about future things, this is about present things. That would have been so much easier, but then he didn't do it that way. So what's the point? Well, in Revelation chapter 1, verse 3, it says this: Blessed is he or she who reads, for he or she who hears the words of the prophecy, and for he or she who heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near. So all I can guarantee you out of reading, listening, and studying the book of Revelation is God promises he's going to bless you. And God keeps his promise. Okay, so how many of y'all could do with a blessing today? Okay, so you're going to get a blessing, okay? It's not going to be from me, it's going to be from God. But here's where we're going to go with this. I want us to repeat this from last week. And it is so important. Joseph and I on the way here, we were talking about knowing who you are. It's important to know who you are. It's important to properly identify who you are. Imagine if I was a hammer. And I was a hammer, and I didn't really know exactly what I was, but I kind of, it's like I kind of know what I am. I'm not exactly sure. And then somebody calls up and says, hey, man, I need to drive some screws into the wall. Could you help? If I don't know who I am, I don't know to go, no, I really can't help because I'm a hammer. I don't do, what you need is a screwdriver. But if I know who I am and a hammer and somebody comes up and says, hey man, could you help me drive some nails? I can go, I can absolutely help you do that because I am a hammer. So when we come into life and you are called to give a testimony to the goodness of God, and I know where God's been good to me. I can identify when God has been good to me because remember I said this last week, I was lost, I was a jerk, and then I got saved. I know my testimony. I know my testimony now. I know what God's carried me through and what God is constantly carrying me through. If I know who I am, I can better serve other people. I can better relate to other people. I can better minister in the name of Jesus. So I want us to read this together one more time. Okay, so say it out nice and loud. When I was dead in my transgressions and the uncircumcision of my flesh, Jesus made me alive together with him, having forgiven me all my transgressions, and having canceled out the certificate of debt consisting of decrees against me, which was hostile to me, Jesus has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. When Jesus disarmed Satan, he made a public display of him, having triumphed over him through himself. That's part of our confession. How much of your debt's been canceled? All of it. It was held against you. It is no longer held against you. Here we go, Revelations chapter 13. And We're going to see how fast we can get through this. And by the end of it, you'll absolutely know who the Antichrist is. I'm going to name, I have a picture. Actually, no, I don't. Okay. And the dragon stood. Now, we know from chapter 12, he clearly says the dragon, he uses the word serpent. That's the old devil, that one, that accuser of the brethren. The one who stands beside me night and day and accuses you, and he's been cast down. Michael's finally grabbed him and thrown him down. He can't go back. He can't go back and have an audience with the Lord again. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns, 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, or crowns, and on his head were blasphemous names. All right. Now, you have something with 7 heads and 10 horns. Immediately you're going, again, John, could you just have scribbled a picture of this? Could you have just taken a photo of it, digitally downloaded? It would have been awesome if you would have done that for us. Okay, is this talking about an actual creature that's going to come up? First of all, the word beast there, remember in the throne room they're beasts, but that just means animals, living, breathing things. This word beast, let me see if I can find it in my notes. This word beast is, I'll find it eventually. This word beast is Therion. The beast before was called Zun or something like that. It means a living animal. But Therion, this word for beast, means wild, brutal, venomous, destroyer. It's not just describing an animal. It's describing a vicious, rabid dog. I mean, it's a vicious thing. And it's coming up out of the sea. Now, there are people who say, okay, we have to take this extremely literal. This is a beast. It has 7 heads. It has 10 crowns. It has blasphemous words written on it. And here's what it looks like and on all those things. That's one theory. Another theory is that we look at it from more of a, what does it represent? Now, as I understand it, anytime something's coming out of the sea, it represents a conquering army. It's a conqueror. It's a political state. It's an empire that they've left their shores to come to your shore to make your shore become their shore. It's a conquering thing. You look out, oh no, the oncoming army is coming after us. They're sailing to our shores to take over us. I typed in on my Google thing there on the internet, I just put in top conquerors, biggest conquerors, because I had a theory and I was kind of working on it. And so I found this website and it gave the top, in their opinion, the top 10 conquerors throughout history. There was a guy named Timur. He was a Turkey and Mongoloid Empire. He basically took over the Muslim world, West, South, Central Asia. He was number 10. There was Hannibal, Hannibal Barca. He went against the Roman Empire, the Carthaginian Empire. Then Napoleon Bonaparte was number 8. And we all know that at 5.5 foot, he still ruled over 70 million people at one time. It's a lot for a little guy. Francisco Pizarro was Spain. He took 160 men and defeated the entire empire. Of course, he had guns. They didn't. Cyrus the Great. In Persia, he conquered the Median Empire. His rule spanned 3 continents. Julius Caesar of Rome. Of course, he pretty much ran Africa and Europe. Attila the Hun. He was the enemy of Rome. Central Asia and Germany. Alexander the Great. By the age 30, he had conquered much of the known world. This guy was an overachiever, Genghis Khan, Mongol Empire. He had the largest contiguous empire ever. His empire spanned 4,860,000 square miles. Okay, and then this last guy I'd never heard of. Hari Singh Nalwa. How many of y'all remember him from? No? Okay. He, Sikh Empire, Sikh Empire in the Middle East. He's the only one who ever took this thing called the Khyber Pass, which is between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And apparently, if you got that, it's like having the Panama Canal. You're everything. This guy, here's this guy. I think here's why he made number one. They're out, and a tiger attacks him. And he tells the rest of his men, I got this. And he breaks the tiger's jaw and kills the tiger. I would not mess with this guy. Okay, he was the number one emperor. Mike, why are you saying this? Because I think what we're seeing here is we're seeing a picture of all those empires, past, present, and future, that have come up, that have come in the spirit of Antichrist against God, against Jesus. They've come up, and so there's 7 of those, and they have 10 heads. Because look, you have Nero, you have Caesar. Both of them would have been horns of one head, Rome, okay? So I don't know where it is, and somebody way smarter than me and who has way more time than me can figure this out for us and let us know. But I believe what it is, it's talking about a political, conquering emperor, nation kind of thing that are going to come up. And it's coming up through the power. Wouldn't we all say that, looking back, that Hitler in Nazi Germany was being fueled by an anti-Christ spirit or movement? Yeah, absolutely. And so we can see this throughout the world. Have we seen all that we're going to see? Could we go back and identify those through history? I don't know. It depends on if he's coming back this week or 10 years from now. So we've got all these things. The beast is coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns, 7 heads. On his horn were 10 diadems, which are crowned, a position of kingship or leadership. And on his head were blasphemous names. Blasphemy has basically two definitions. Blasphemy can be, number one, making yourself equal with or greater than or usurping who God is. When you say, I'm God, I love that t-shirt. I know 2 things. There is a God, and you're not it. I like that t-shirt. And actually, it should be 3 things. I know I'm not it either. The other blasphemy is that when we slander God or take God's name in vain. So this is what's written on this. This is their mode of relating to people. They're anti-God. They're anti-Jesus. They're anti the Word. They're anti-Israel. They're anti all this stuff. So here we are, Revelation 17, 9 through 10. If you go and look at that, you'll see that the 7 heads there are interpreted as 7 kings. So I think to say these are empires and they're kings over the empires probably works pretty well. Verse 2. And the beast which I saw like a leopard, the beast like I saw like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his throne and his great authority. Well, let's start from the beginning. For the end of that verse. The dragon is going to give these emperors, these leaders, these horns and heads, the enemy, Satan, is the one who's going to fuel their ability to conquer whatever they conquer, to conquer the world as they know it. So that tells us that at least Satan has some amount of power. To say Satan has no power is ridiculous, because he's got the power to be able to make these kind of things happen and give these leaders the ability to do the things that they could do. But if you look back in Daniel chapter 7, where Daniel has had a vision, Daniel describes some of these very same things. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 6, he describes the Greco-Macedonian Empire as a panther or as a leopard. In verse 5, he describes the Medo-Persia Empire as a bear. In verse 4, he describes the Babylonian Empire as a lion. What do we know about a panther? They're sleek, they're powerful, they're lethal. What do we know about the feet of a bear? A bear will go anywhere. He'll walk across anything. Frozen ground, burning ground, rocky ground, thorny ground, don't care, just keeps on going. What do we know about a lion? Powerful, deadly. It has no mercy. It's brutal. So the source of the beast the power comes from Satan, and so this has come out of the water. So one of the heads, as it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. Okay, so is this a literal raising from the dead? And this is where people get in, well, Satan cannot raise